And we are live with another edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside, as always, by my co-host Andrew Johnson. And Johnson, we are just a few short hours away from kickoff in week number 10 of the National Football League season. But before we get into week number 10, let's recap what happened back in week number 9. And it was certainly a wild week number 9. We had a couple of upsets, some crazy games as well happening in Cincinnati and in Buffalo. And of course, the biggest news of the week, of course, is yesterday's NFL trade deadline. We're going to be recapping some of the big trades that happened as of yesterday. That's going to really shake up some of the movement in both the AFC and the NFC for the foreseeable future, especially for one team in particular in the AFC East. But it was certainly a wild week number 9, Johnson, and we're at the halfway point now in the NFL season.
Halfway point of the NFL season, and we have got a lot to cover. Games were lackluster outside of a couple, but let's just go straight into that trade deadline. I'm going to say the most surprising news was what was going on with the Jets. Not because they were sellers, but because what they got for their pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the only surprising thing of what the Jets did was how it came about, because keep in mind they had signed Sauce Gardner just a couple months ago in July to a big time contract extension. So you would think that he was off of trade negotiations completely, even though despite the fact the Jets are 1-7. And lo and behold, that was not the case. The Jets trading Sauce Gardner to the Indianapolis Colts. Colts, of course, coming off that really bad loss to the Steelers on Sunday, 6 turnovers in that game. But the biggest problem for them this season, Johnson, has been their secondary. It's been very on and off. They've had some injuries at the position, so they get one of the best young corners in the NFL, and Sauce Gardner from the Jets. They give up 2 first-round picks and Adonai Mitchell in the trade. So the Jets get the Colts pick in this year's draft and in next year's draft as well. So they are stockpiling up picks right now. And this also move pretty much embarks that the Colts are going all in with Daniel Jones at quarterback.
They're going in. They think he's a winner, and it's going to be really interesting because they have a lot of expensive pieces. They have one of the best O lines in football, and yeah, they're all in, and the Jets are all out. They've got multiple picks from a lot of different organizations, and they're going into full rebuild mode. I mean, they have a couple of nice young pieces for the future. Like, for example, I think they got John Mechie from the
They
Eagles, I
got him
believe.
from, yes.
So it was a swap for him and Michael Carter, the second. They got a 6th round pick in 2026, and the Eagles got a 2027 seventh round pick. Quentin Williams, they've got, I think they got the Cowboys' 1st round pick for Quentin Williams, right?
So what they got in that deal is they're going to get the best pick out of the Packers and Cowboys pick next season. So
Yeah, it will probably
they
be the Cowboys.
it probably be the Cowboys, depending on what happens. But yeah, that was another big trade. Quentin Williams going to the Dallas Cowboys for a 1st round pick in 2027, which will be the best of the Packers/Cowboys pick. They get a 2nd round pick in this year's NFL draft, and they get former 1st round defensive tackle Mozzie Smith as well. So the Jets are loading on 2 of their best 2 defensive players, arguably, on this team. And I think the more shocking part about this deal, and don't get me wrong, this is great value for what the Jets got for these 2 players. I was very surprised that Breece Hall was not traded, though, because it was mentioned
Running
for
back markets
months.
are pretty bad.
Yeah, and they were looking for a 3rd round pick. It's for what I heard for him. So I thought maybe a contending team would be more than willing to give up a 3rd round pick to get him. I guess that
If I
wasn't
was
the
the
case to
Patriots,
be.
I'd give up a 3rd round pick for him. Jeez, with that running game, but that would never happen.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the Jets would never do that. It'd be very, very stunning if they did. Um, but yeah, Quentin Williams now is a Dallas Cowboy. We've heard Jerry Jones talk about how they're trying to fix this run defense and just trying to fix the defense entirely. I mean, look what happened on Monday night against the Arizona Cardinals, another big stunner this past week in the NFL, and the Cardinals just pretty much carved them from start to finish in that game. Jacoby Brissett looked amazing. Marvin Harrison Jr. having one of his best games of his NFL career. And the Cardinals, despite not having a great running game, they were able to run for a pretty good significant mark in that game for multiple backs. So I think that was concerning for Dallas in that game. That's why they go out and get Quinton Williams. They also got Logan Wilson from the Cincinnati Bengals. They gave up only a seventh round pick to get him. So pretty good value if you're a Dallas Cowboy fan to get those two type of guys. But yeah, I mean, it shows you that what happened this past week impacted what we saw yesterday in this trade deadline. We saw the Chargers acquiring Trevor Penning from the Saints at that after them losing Joe Alt for the rest of the season. A really tough blow after that happening. We saw the Bears trade for a defensive end, Joe Tryon Shoyinka from the Browns. That after that insane game between them and the Bengals where they had a 2-touchdown lead late. Flacco leads them to an insane comeback, and thankfully for the Bears, Colson Lovely makes a heroic play with like 20 seconds left. They win that game, so they get some pass rush help to fix that. Pass rush, hopefully for the next couple weeks. We saw the Seahawks after their dominating win over the Commanders, which we'll talk about them in a second. But they get Rashid Shaheed to add to that receiving core with Jackson Smith and Jigba. That's a great 1-2 punch for Sam Darnold, who has been playing some really good football the last couple weeks. So a big get for Seattle, showing that they are trying to go all in on the season. We saw Jacksonville added Jacoby Myers from the Raiders after their 1-point overtime victory over that same Raiders team on Sunday. That was a thrilling game between those two teams. And other than that, we saw the Philadelphia Eagles adding Jalen Phillips from the Dolphins. The Ravens getting Draymond Jones from the Titans. Eagles also getting Jair Alexander from Baltimore. And trying to look if I missed any trade other than
Kyle
that. But
Duggar to the Steelers. Come on.
that's true. That did happen a couple weeks ago. Kyle Duggar did go to the Steelers as well
Happened
as
last
Keon
week
White
on the
going to the
28th.
Patriots.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
but
crazy. It was 28th. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I
right. It
mean,
was a week ago.
I guess they want to shed salary. Maybe they feel like they could reel in a really big fish in the offseason when it comes to the wide receiver because they didn't get any trade deadline. But I mean, that was pretty much the really big trades in the last week or so.
Yeah.
We already covered the Joe Flacco trade, which has paid dividends a little bit.
Yeah,
I
the
mean, the
Bengals'
defense
offense I mean, their
is
offense is still
humming.
looking great, but their defense is an absolute mess. Um, Other than that, though, like I mentioned, there was a couple good games this past weekend. I mentioned the Steelers game, the Colts, the Bears and Bengals game. We saw the Vikings upsetting the Lions this past Sunday. A big performance from J.J. McCarthy in that game. We talked about the Seahawks game. A tough break for Jay and Daniels. A very gruesome injury to his left arm. Thankfully, not throwing arm, but he is more than likely done for the rest of the regular season. And the Commanders have been having a very rough year as it is. Their defenses look terrible. Their offense now has to go without their star quarterback for the rest of the season. And Marcus Mariota is going to have to run the ship the rest of the way. So good luck to Washington. And we saw a big game in Buffalo as well, Johnson. I know you probably want to talk about it for a little bit for the Chiefs' perspective, but the Bills' defense really shined in that game against the Chiefs in that game, really shutting down Patrick Mahomes for the majority of that performance and giving him I believe, was his worst passer rating, right, of his entire
Yeah,
NFL career. Yeah,
yeah. Patrick Mahomes cannot play against the rush. If you have four guys that can just rush his offensive line, he can't play. He lost 2 Super Bowls like that, and I think the cat's really out of it back now. I like to say he can't play in the Justin Herbert style of playing, of just running around with a chicken, like a chicken with his head cut off. But yeah, one of the worst games he's played of his career, and he can't play against the pass rush. So that's what we kind of have right here.
and I think for Buffalo, they've been getting their number in the regular season. I think if you ask any fan, they know that you can beat them in the regular season, but you have to believe the way that these two teams have met the last couple of years, they're more than likely going to be once again in the playoffs, and that's where the
Buffalo
Bills have
would
struggled.
lose the next 10 regular season matchups
Right,
if they
if
can
they can
win
get
one game in the
one.
playoffs.
Exactly. So they would love to get a victory in the postseason if the Chiefs were to get there. Keep in mind, the Chiefs right now, if the season ended today, would not be in the playoffs at season's end. So that's something to note.
But remember, they're number one in a lot of people's power rankings. Never
That's
forget
true.
about that.
That's true. So that's something to note, but that's a very big monumental win for Buffalo. They had that little stretch where they were looking a little bit weak after losing games like to the Falcons, and they were struggling against other teams. And since that happened, they went on their bye week, dominated Carolina, who, how about them beating the Packers in Lambeau Field, a very big stunning upset for Carolina in that game. And now they beat a Chiefs team that, as you mentioned, a lot of people had as maybe the Super Bowl favorite going into the week. Buffalo gets a big statement win to go to 6-2 now on the regular season.
Yeah, good for Buffalo. They're still not leading the division, though. That game against New England is going to really be the deciding factor because New England has a Charmin soft schedule. They have a couple tough games that potentially in there. The Ravens, they're going to play the Buccaneers this week, which we're going to go into. They're going to play the
That's gonna be a
Bills. So
great
this,
game.
it's not all sunshine and rainbows, but if they could just take care of business against the teams you know they're supposed to win, or beat, and then you beat Buffalo, they'll win the division. So that game in New England, circle calendars because that's probably going to be for a division, no matter how early that's going to be. So it's going to be very interesting.
And then the last two things I want to bring up before we go into the mushing hour. We saw on Thursday night. I mean, the Ravens just dominated the Dolphins in that Thursday night game. It was absolute. I don't even know what the right words for that game was. It was just bad from start to finish. Does lead to a change in the front office for the Dolphins. They do fire Chris Greer, their longtime general manager, so they're going to be looking for a new GM. You tend to think once the GM is gone, that means Mike McDaniel eventually is also on the way out. They're just in a disaster right now with the way this team is going. I was surprised they didn't make a lot of moves at the deadline. I was expecting them to trade Bradley Chubb, maybe Jalen Waddle or Devon Achane, but they pretty much held put and only traded Jalen Phillips. So it shows that they're trying to get rid of some of these players, but their price is probably just too high for a certain amount of guys. So we'll see what the next GM does for Miami in that spot. And then we mentioned the Cardinals earlier beating the Cowboys, but they are going to be without Kyler Murray for the next at least 4 weeks. He moves to the IR with this injury, but I'm not so certain, Johnson, even when he does come back from his injury, if he gets that starting QB role back. Because all signs seem to be that Jacoby Brissett right now is going to be the starter for this Cardinals team. He's been playing pretty good football the last 3 weeks,
I've
including
always been a
that Monday
big
night
fan of
upset.
Jacoby. Yeah, I've been really big fan of Jacoby Brissett his entire career. I think he's been a great stopgap QB for a lot of teams. And hey, if that's gonna be his forte and what gets him paid in the NFL, then so be it.
It could potentially earn him a starting job in next season. It really could. A team like the Jets, who if they don't want to go for a quarterback in the draft, they might just say, you know what, let's just sign him for the one season and have him be the starter. I could see it. So
Yeah, I
good
could
on
definitely
Jacoby
see it
Brissett.
too. It's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah, good on Jacoby Brissett, and we'll see how the rest the way the rest of the way the Cardinals do with him at the starting quarterback. But let's go into week number 10, Johnson, of the Mushing Hour. It is a very loaded slate this week in the NFL. Other than the Thursday night game, there are some pretty good games we had this upcoming week. Last week for the both of us was I would say, a up and down week for the two of us. 3-5 for me, 4-4 for you. So not bad. I barely say over 500. Let's see if I can keep it that way going into this week. So let's start on Thursday night. I mentioned not a great game. It's the Raiders at the Broncos, excuse me. The Broncos 9.5 point favorites, 42.5 the over under.
Give me Raiders plus 9.5. I feel like after that terrible, terrible game, they have to get one right here. So give me Raiders plus 9.5.
Well, I mean that's a heartbreaking loss the way they did. Went to overtime after tying the game late. They gave up the go ahead touchdown to start the overtime period, have a chance to win the game at the end of overtime after they scored a touchdown of their own. They go for a 2 point conversion. They don't get the 2 point conversion. They lose by a point. I think because of that, and considering the fact that you're playing on a short week and you're going to Denver, it all just seems like a recipe for disaster for me. So I'm going to take the Broncos minus 9.5 in that spot.
Respectable
It
pick.
The Raiders are there's just nothing redeeming about them right now. The Broncos, despite not really playing great against the Texans on Sunday, they're still winning. They're one of the hottest teams in football right now at the current moment.
And talk about hottest teams in football. Let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts, who are going to be in Berlin. We got a European game here. Falcons versus Colts in Berlin. Colts are a 6.5 point favorite. Over under slate at 48.5. Give me the Colts minus 6.5 here. I think the Falcons will be outgunned.
Have I mentioned how I hate these games?
No, you haven't. Please tell me more.
I hate just waking up at for watch football just to watch one game.
Don't you love your 9 a.m. football with your cereal? And if you're on the West Coast, your 6 a.m. Football straight out of
You know
bed
what the
on
worst
a
part is?
Sunday, waking up.
Do
What?
you know what the international game is next week?
I do not.
Do you want me to spoil it now? Do you want to wait and find out next week?
Now you can tell me now.
It's Commanders against the Dolphins.
Wow, I'm not waking up.
Madrid's in for a rough one.
Madrid
Rough game
is
for
you got
Madrid.
a great game. You got the Commanders without Jalen Daniels. You got the Dolphins are gonna probably fire
The
their head coach
Dolphins.
after that game.
Yeah, they really might. That could be very possible.
At
I
least
don't know
Berlin got a
why.
good game though, right?
Yeah, I think this actually will be a competitive game. I'm actually going to take the Falcons to cover this game 6.5.
I
I
could see it.
need them. I'm looking at this based off of close game against New England last week, a game that they could have won potentially, but a missed extra point cost them that game. Drake London looked unbelievable in that matchup. I need to see a little bit more at Bijan Robinson. He's been kind of zoned out of the offense the last 2 weeks, and you're facing a Colts defense that hasn't been great against the pass this season. They're more of a rush defense in a certain way. We'll see if Sauce Gardner plays. He's still in the concussion protocol from when we got hurt from the Jets. I'm assuming he will play, but I'm still curious to see how that matchup will go between him and Drake London. That should be a fun one. So I'll take the Falcons plus 6.5 in that matchup. That should be hopefully a game that if you do wake up early for it, hopefully it is a good one in
Tell me
Berlin.
about the next game.
Our next game is another interesting game. We have the Ravens going to Minnesota to take on the Minnesota Vikings. The Ravens, a 4.5 point favorite, 49.5 the over under.
Vikings plus 4.5. Book it.
Ooh, he's just booking after that one. You and I are on the opposite side so far the first three games, which is very rare sometimes. I'm going to take Baltimore minus the 4.5. I was very impressed. Obviously, they play the Dolphins, so you really shouldn't be. I shouldn't overlook it too much. But I was impressed with what they did on Thursday against that Miami team. They beat in front of them. Albeit the Vikings had probably the most impressive win of the entire week last week against that Detroit team. I'm wondering if there's going to be a layover for what happened in that game. I think Baltimore right now is playing with house money because they're trying to catch the Steelers in the division. So they need to win games like this against a Vikings team that is still alive in the division race. I'll take Baltimore minus the 4.5 in that one in Minnesota. How about this next game, Johnson? You're going to be very interested in this one.
Patriots versus Buccaneers. I think this is the first Pats game we're going over so far. We've seen this, maybe the second. I think
It's,
we went over the Buffalo game as well.
yeah, because there was Sunday night.
Prime time. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So Patriots, interesting enough to talk about as a regular afternoon game again. How about that? So we
yeah.
got Patriots at Buccaneers. They're going into Tampa, and the Buccaneers are a 2.5 point favorite at home. Over under slated at 48.5. I think the Patriots cover, but the Buccaneers are going to win this. This is one of those games on the schedule. In the beginning of the year, if you remember, I circled this as a loss for the Patriots. I'm going to chalk it as a loss, but they're going to cover.
Well, keep in mind, after this, you get the Jets on Thursday night. So even if you do lose this game, you should bounce
I get a
back,
bye week.
hopefully. Yeah, you pretty much should hopefully bounce back afterwards. I will go opposite again. I'm going to take Buccaneers minus the 2.5 in this one. We're still waiting to see if Bucky Irving is going to play. He still hasn't practiced as of yet going into today. That would be a great get if they do get him back for the game on Sunday. If not, I still like Buccaneers' chances in this game against a Patriots team that's just really on fire right now. But at some point, you feel like the Patriots. I think you would even agree. I think you're okay with losing this game because eventually you don't want to build up such a big win
Yeah, I
streak
mean,
to the
I'm
point
not.
where
Listen,
you could get let
the
down.
Buccaneers are a very good team. They're going to probably win the division and maybe win a playoff game. So it's no shame in losing to this team at home.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like Baker Mayfield too. What is? I feel like he's going to have a big game in this one, and the reason I say this is
He's overdue. He's way
right.
overdue.
Look at the last 2 weeks he's had playing a bad game against Detroit. Really didn't do anything against the Saints either. I think this is going to be a shootout between these two teams personally. So I'll just take the minus 2.5, but I do love the over as well in that matchup at Tampa Bay. What do we have next?
We've got the Rams at the 49ers, a battle of in-state teams from California, one being and they're both transplants, by the way. Both these teams did not start. Sorry, only the Rams didn't start in LA. I'm first thinking
Yeah.
LA Chargers, my bad. We got the originals versus the transplants here. Rams at 49ers. So the 49ers are at home. They are unfortunately a 4.5 point underdog. The Rams are a 4.5 point favorite, believe it or not. 49.5 is the slated over under. That doesn't matter. I'm taking the 49ers to cover this game plus 4.5. It's going to be a Niner home game no matter what. So I would be shocked if you have 5 Rams fans in there.
Well, it was a nice home game when these two
No
teams
matter
played that
what.
Thursday night a couple weeks ago too.
I know. So it's going to be even worse now.
Yeah. The Rams, here's the problem with me. I just don't see the Rams losing both games this season to San Francisco. The way they lost that game earlier in the year was a frustrating one because they should have, on all accounts, they should have won that game. A couple of bad turnovers for Kyron Williams really hurt them. And then, of course, they had that fourth down try in overtime and they weren't able to convert and they lose the game by a field goal. I just can't see them losing both of these games to this Niners team. I'm going to take the Rams minus 4.5. I've obviously got bit by them earlier in the year when I picked this game. I'm going to just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're going to want revenge in this matchup the second time around. So I'll take LA minus 4.5 in that matchup in Santa Clara. On Sunday Night Football, we then go to the Pittsburgh Steelers going into SoFi Stadium to take on the Los Angeles Chargers. Chargers are a 2.5-point favorite, 44.5 the over-under.
Give me Chargers plus 2.5, minus 2.5 here. Excuse me.
Okay. As I say,
Steelers, they got to figure it out. That defense hasn't been it.
I mean, this is just the typical Steeler game where they come off a very impressive win that they probably could lose this game. Here's my problem, though, because the Chargers now lose Joe Alt. They're now down the top two tackles, and they're facing a Steelers defense that finally woke up this season. I don't know. This just smells like a prime TJ Watt opportunity for him to dominate that Chargers O-line. I'm not sure who I'm going to take in the game. We have a pick'ems thing on our own side. I don't know who I'm picking yet for this game. For this, I'm just going to take the over. I think there could be points scored between these two teams, but it's really a coin flip to me to decide who wins this game entirely. These are really two teams that could use the win right now with the way their divisions are going. So I'll just take the over for that matchup between Pittsburgh and Los Angeles. And then, Johnson, let's round it out on Monday Night Football.
On Monday Night Football, we've got the Eagles at the Packers. The Packers are a 2.5-point favorite at home. 45.5 is the slated over-under. I can't figure out either of these teams, so just give me Eagles plus 2.5.
Yeah, I'm at the same point with this game where I might just take the over-under because the Eagles obviously on a bye week last week, but they've been playing a little bit better since that debacle on Thursday night against the Giants. But the Packers they're just the weirdest team of football because the first 2 weeks of the season we crowned them a potential Super Bowl threat. Then they lose to Cleveland. Then they go on a win streak again.
Maybe they only lose the bad teams.
The Panthers are also weird because I don't know if they're good or bad. They're like kind of.
I don't know either. They're mid.
They're just like a mad team right now. They're playing good football right now, despite the fact. The Packers, I feel like, need this game though because to lose back to back, and then you have the Lions still on your coattails. You have now the Bears right now in a spot where they could get in first. The Vikings look a little bit more better after that game on Sunday. The Packers needed more, in my opinion. The Eagles are in a division where they pretty much have it wrapped up because every other team sucks at this current point. I don't like it, but I'm going to just take the Packers minus the 2.5. I don't trust it, but I feel like this is a must-win for Green Bay. They have to win this game. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they bounce back and they fix the offensive mistakes they made in that game against Carolina. So Green Bay minus 2.5 is my pick to round out this week. So a lot of differences between you and I this week.
Yeah,
so
we're gonna split a lot.
Yes, yeah,
it's gonna be interesting.
Either one of us is gonna have a great week, or one of us, or we're gonna be split. Time. Yeah, and one of us gonna have a terrible time. Yeah, that's.
Or we just go back and forth, and I got one right, you got one right, and we just we end up 500. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm perfectly content with that. Like I said, I'm trying to keep my record afloat in the NFL because college football has still been very bad to me. But speaking of college football, Johnson, we'll be breaking down the new top 25 poll, this time the first of its iteration for the college football playoff poll, tomorrow on the show. A very interesting poll that came out last night, and we're going to be breaking down the top 25 teams in the country, what it means for the playoff down the rest of the season, and then we go into week number 11 of the Mushing Hour, a very good slate for week number 11 in college football. But that's going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. We are now through the halfway point in the National Football League season as we now head into week number 10. A very wild NFL trade deadline now brings us into a big loaded slate in week 10. You have the Thursday night game with the Raiders and Broncos, Falcons and Colts in Berlin on Sunday morning, Ravens, Vikings, Patriots, Bucks, Rams, and 49ers, rounded out on Sunday night by Steelers and Chargers, and then Eagles and Packers on Monday Night Football. We'll be back here next week to recap it all here on the show. For Nicholas Pavona and Andrew Johnson, this has been the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your week.